So the Klingon looks at you from across the bar, raises his hands, and suddenly it illuminates as arcane energy pours out of his fingers, and he electrocutes you using his arcane power. What do you mean? Yes, of course Klingons have got magic. I mean, that's my homebrew. Sorry, I probably should have told you. Yeah, Klingons can use magic. It's Star Trek with magic. Harry Potter meets Star Trek, basically. Yeah. Do you have a problem with that? Hello and welcome to this week's episode of How to Be a Great GM. My name is Guy and today we're looking at 3 rules for homebrewing. Now, homebrewing, if you're not familiar with the term, is where you take an existing role-playing system and you add your own rules to it. You add your own nuances to it. Perhaps you take an existing setting, such as in the example at the beginning, a Star Trek setting, and you add your own twists to it, like adding magic or more magic to Star Trek than one would normally find. So homebrewing is when you're adding in your own personal touch to a space. But you can go too far sometimes, and sometimes just because you can do a thing doesn't mean that you necessarily should. So these are my 3 rules for homebrewing. When I'm about to create a homebrew rule system, I look to these 3 things. Now, I will be referencing the live action role-playing, live adventure role-playing playthrough thing of the Ghosts of Saltmarsh that I run on twitch.tv/DND. So the D&D Twitch channel, I run the game, and is available here on YouTube a couple weeks after it's aired there. Now, the reason why I'm referencing that is because it is a good example of where I have taken an existing setting, I've taken an existing module and an existing rule set, and I have changed it. I have homebrewed it into something that I find as the game master works better, or at least does something to my game that necessitates me doing this in the first place. So I will be referencing that. There are no spoilers here, but I will be referencing that, so bear that in mind. So when we look at the 3 rules, the 3 rules are fit, enhance, consult. Those are the 3 rules. Thank you for watching, and I hope that you all have a great time. Alright, fine. I'll explain what those 3 rules mean. So the 3 rules: enhance, fit, consult, fit, enhance, however you want to do it. Those 3 rules, let's unpack them. So fit. The only time that you need to add homebrewed material, in my opinion, to an existing setting and a rule set is if it fits. Does it fit the setting? If you want magic to be added to your Star Trek universe, where spells are used, does it fit? The purist in me, the purist Star Trek fan goes, it doesn't fit. It doesn't. Yes, I know Star Trek's got some magical powers, that kind of magic doesn't fit. So if I was a player in that homebrew, I would feel very awkward. It would be very odd for me, and I would try and avoid it. If we were playing in, say, a modern day setting and you wanted to suddenly have teleportation as part of the government's work, that might fit. It might fit. It might fit if you can set it up properly. If you're playing in a fantastical environment and suddenly spaceships land, would that fit? Maybe, maybe not. It's something that you need to decide. So does it fit according to the setting? The next is, does it fit according to the story? Now, the story you have complete control over, as you do with the setting if it's your own custom setting. But if it's a pre-existing one, then your setting is kind of defined already and you are now tweaking it. With the story, however, does it make sense that suddenly aliens start invading a fantasy environment? It might feel very odd. It might work very well, in which case then, yes, it's a good fit. Remember, just because you say, well, that's weird, but it could work if I do this, if I do that. So by looking at fit, something that doesn't necessarily fit straight away, you can tweak and adjust and go, well, now it actually does fit. aliens in the 1930s and suddenly, oh, it's War of the Worlds type of scenario. Okay, cool, we can run with that. If you have already been running a campaign in a pre-existing world and now suddenly aliens, that might not fit. So you've got to check for fit with the story. You've got to check for fit with the setting. And then finally, you've got to check for fit with the play style. My players are traditionalist, hardcore Star Wars fans. So does it fit that now suddenly we have this alien who has an umbrella and can fly through walls and arrives and sings songs and tries to teach us good manners? That's very, very strange within the Star Wars environment. That doesn't really fit with the setting. Might fit with your story, but it certainly doesn't fit with anything else. It's very bizarre. And my hardcore Star Wars fans are going to be going, this just doesn't feel right. On the other hand, if it was Star Trek has aliens that adopt the forms of things that our characters have mentally thought about. And so as a result, it fits the setting, it fits the story, and quite possibly it would fit the playstyle of players who go, we will have to scan for anomalies in the subspace band. Perhaps they telepathically communicated with you. There is a good, solid mystery to go through. If at the end of it, it's suddenly, oh, it was just magic, now it doesn't fit again. So does it fit? Fundamental rule number 1 of Homebrew. Does it fit with all of these things? Does it fit with our expectations of should it be there? If it does, then add it. Does it enhance? Is it something that's going to make this experience better? So when we look at an existing setting, maybe there is something missing, so we can add it. If we look at The Ghosts of Saltmarsh, this is a complete adventure book. There is so much material in there. However, there is also not a lot of material that's in there for certain things, for certain play styles, for certain stories that you might want to tell. So you add it in. Okay, great. So we want more ship stuff. There's ship combat in that rule system. We want more. So we have to develop the ship combat. So it's missing. So we must add it. That's a good reason to add Homebrew, is if you want the system to do something that it wasn't necessarily designed to do, or that it was designed to do, but it just wasn't feasible to print a 10,000 page rule book, and that particular rule subset hasn't been developed yet. Now it's time to Homebrew and add in what you like. In my instance, I was like, well, it's missing a lot of ships. I want there to be more. So I created 27 unique ships based off of the core of what was already given to me in that book. It was missing, now it exists. Makes things easier. Does your Homebrew make things easier or more complicated? Again, going back to Saltmarsh, which has a nautical feel to it, a nautical theme to it, one of the fundamentals about ship travel, ship commerce, is trade and ship docking fees and crew fees and all of those kinds of things. That's not the purview of the book Adventures, of the Saltmarsh book, Ghosts of Saltmarsh. That's not what that book was designed to do. The book was designed to give you adventures and give you the basic building blocks from which to now move forward. So I then said, okay, well, what's going to make things easier? Calculating cargo, and how much does cargo cost? How much is a ton in medieval setting? That's 2,000 pounds. What exists in the rule system already to show us that kind of value? Well, in the one book, it talks about how much 1 pound of flour costs. So how much does a ton of flour cost? That doesn't exist anywhere as far as I know. So, Homebrew rules, let's add in the costs of things in a tonnage capacity. So when you buy a ton of flour, this is how much it costs. How much does a sailor cost every month? What is the average salary of a sailor? Again, we've been given hints of it in other material and other rule books and rule sets, but not over such a long period of time. Remember, this game was designed for players to go into dungeons and kill monsters, and particularly dragons, not to engage in nautical mercantile ship trade. So this is a Homebrew set of rules that you need to then create that adds missing aspects, 27 sailing ships, that makes things easier. Okay, cool. You want to buy 12 tons of flour because your cargo has a cargo capacity of 20 tons? Sure. This is how much 12 tons of flour is going to cost you. So instead of having to then sit down during the game session and try and come up with all of these vast numbers, rules, and bits and pieces, you've homebrewed it, you've created it ahead of time. It has made things easier. And then sometimes you can homebrew to take things to the next level. This is when there's a system in place and you look at it and you go, that's a good system, but I think we can add to it. I think if we just add this in, we tweak that, yes, it might not numerically balance with some of the other components for other parts of the game, but because those parts are not part of my game, it won't unbalance. I can take it to the next level. Again, with the Ghosts of Saltmarsh as an example, the book itself is focused around adventures that the characters can go on, and those adventures predominantly are not involving vast amounts of sailing, not involving cargo trades, and certainly not involving massive amounts of ship combat. They have a section for ship combat for sure. Again though, I wanted to take it to the next level, and so added in homebrew rules. Instead of the ship taking 3 actions, I think I've added close on 23 actions that can happen in any one given round. It's a huge overload, and if that was to be part of the original book, the book would be 400 pages long and would be so expensive it would be prohibitive to buy. It also would add to the canon rules of the game so much additional material that it becomes almost unplayable. Whereas in a homebrew situation, it's like, aha, that's pretty cool. Those are some optional rules I will add in. So when you are enhancing material, you are working from the base and make sure that you are working using their base ruling system, and that you're not introducing new rules altogether or making up new mechanics for that matter. Try and find comparable mechanics and adapt them to work for what you are doing. And that brings us to the last space, which is consulting. Now, you must consult with your players. Hey guys, I'm thinking of writing a 5,000 page rulebook to handle starship combat in Starfinder, because I believe that Starfinder's combat system is flawed, and I want to enhance it and upgrade it and add to it. What do you guys think? If your players go, we love the system as it is already, we wouldn't change it, then don't change it. If your players go, oh, that's going to be brilliant, that's wonderful, can we help? Even better. Getting buy-in from your players for homebrew content is brilliant. It allows them to feel as if they're part of the system. It invests them in your game even more when they can start to see their own rule systems being expressed. It's a brilliant way to get information and to get inspiration in terms of how to enhance that homebrew system that you are busy creating. Asking outsiders is so easy today. Jump onto a Discord group, jump onto Reddit, jump onto social media and say, hey, this is my idea for a new rule system for how to handle inter-party microbial or viral transference within a medical situation, because I'm playing an ER-inspired type of doctors and nurses role-playing game, and I need my virology to make sense. Ask outsiders. People will come to you and say, well, you've got some interesting ideas, but there was a rule system written in 1972 which actually dealt very specifically with viral transference and has mechanics on how fast a virus propagates, blah, 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 blah. Off you go. Get outsiders to consult with so that you can get a much more rounded approach than just one blinkered view. If you're making your own homebrew additions to an existing piece of work, sometimes you forget things. A lot of the game systems that we play have incredibly intricate, very complex rule systems, especially if they've been around for a long time or if they are particularly well developed in terms of Dungeons and Dragons, where there are so many additional books that have come out that if you haven't bought them and memorized all of them, you will forget about. And that's our last thing, the game system. The game system is inherently a system that allows your players to judge and to create a character that will fit within the system. If you are throwing the system out and you're making your own system, that's fine. But there must be a consistency. So your players might say, well, actually, I think that the ships should all be able to do X, Y, and Z. But the game system doesn't have that mechanic, or at least the mechanic says they can't. You need to think very carefully about the implications of homebrewing a change. There's a critical table that I personally love using for my games. It's a homebrew rule system where you roll a d20. If you roll a 20 during combat, this is in a d20 system, obviously. If you roll a 20, it's a critical success. You roll that d20 again. If you get 1 through 5, it's normal damage. 5 through 10, it's double damage. If you roll 11 through 15, triple damage. 16 up to 18, quadruple damage. 19, pentriple damage. And a natural 20, so you've rolled 20 and then you've rolled another 20 again, and the second roll is without modifiers. That 20/20 is an insta-kill. You have hit a vital component, the creature dies. The same goes for my monsters, however. They can do the same to the players, and they can score 5 times the amount of damage against the player characters. Mathematically, it was pointed out to me, this is a flawed system. There are more rolls, generally speaking, rolled against the players' characters than the player characters are rolling against the monsters, by virtue of the fact that there are usually more monsters than there are PCs. As a result, the chance of the PC's deaths has significantly increased. Yes, it has. At the same time, though, when those PCs roll a 20, they score a critical, and then they roll a 17 and they're doing quadruple damage, there are times when the PC sits back and goes, I cut its head off. I did 300 damage. I am awesome. It's a homebrew designed to ignore the game system, ignore statistics, so outsiders look at it and they go, nah. The players look at it and I always give them a choice. Are we using my critical system or are we using the rules critical system? I give them the choice before each game, and sometimes they go, nah, let's just use the rules as written. And most of the time they go, oh, we're going to use your system because your system is so cool. If my character gets cut in half, my character gets cut in half. There's also a system, by the way, for rolling a natural 1, which is an automatic failure. You roll that d20 again, and depending again on those stages, how bad it is, you can end up cutting your own friend in half if you roll a natural 1 whilst trying to do something. So there are different types of homebrew rules that you can add that enhance, that make the game better. But always look back to the rule system and see what they've done, because oftentimes they've got the rules there. You just haven't found them because they're written in some obscure book. So, does it fit the game? Does it fit the setting? Does it fit the story? Does it enhance the game? Does it make the game better? And have you spoken to other people about it? If you have answered yes to all 3, add in that homebrew rule. If you have answered no to does it fit? No, it doesn't fit. Don't add it. If you had answered no, does it enhance? No, actually it slows down. Why would you add it? If you have not consulted with anybody, you are going to fall short. You are going to get it where the players are busy playing, you're in mid-game, and suddenly one player looks up and goes, we can't win. The way that your rule system has now been reworked, we physically cannot win. You don't want that either. Your players are going to disengage instantaneously the moment they realize that they are fighting a losing battle. Those are my 3 rules for homebrew. There are many, many more that you can come up with, I'm sure. What is a homebrew rule that you like to use? What's been added to your existing game that has either made a better fit, enhanced, and what sort of consultation did you get to get there? Maybe you came up with it on your own and it works perfectly. In which case then, well, great for you and better for your players. So, let us know down below. Until next time, hit that like button if you like the video. Hit the subscribe button if you want to see more. And yeah, until next week, happy gaming.